Kia ora, good evening. There's been a mixed reception for John Key at his limited number of public engagements on Waitangi Day. After pulling out of commemorations up north, Mr Key's plans to attend the Governor-General's garden party in Auckland were rained off today, and that left just a trip to the NRL Nines, where some backed his decision to stay at home, while others were not so welcoming. Our political editor Corin Dan has been with John Key today.
It was a visit to the hallowed rugby ground, not the traditional treaty ground for John Key today.
Look, there's always going to be a mixture of vibes, but yeah, people just out enjoying themselves, I think.
Mr Key missing the dawn service at the National Marae in Waitangi for the first time as Prime Minister. But he might have had second thoughts about going to Auckland's NRL Nines instead. However, with some heavyweight backing from boxer Joseph Parker on hand,
Joseph, how are you?
He soon found fans.
Yeah, no, it's good that he showed up. Really good.
I think, he's been staunch. He's made the right decision.
John Key's decision to come to a relatively safe environment like the Nines comes amidst heightened security around the TPP signing, with some MPs encouraged to close their electorate offices.
We shut our electorate office and my electorate on Friday. I don't know that we were advised to do that, but we just thought that was the sensible course of action. It is really disappointing when you see the sort of Molotov cocktails that have gone through the window of Anne Tolley's office.
Mr Key talking about the firebombing at his Social Development Minister's Whakatane office that's possibly linked to anti-TPP protests. And while One News last night wrongly reported that Labour MPs David Shearer and Phil Goff received death threats specifically against them after speaking up for the TPP, Mr Goff confirms that a generalised death threat to MPs was emailed to his parliamentary office. Mr Goff says police also visited his electorate office around the time of the TPP signing, apparently as a standard round of police visits to Auckland electorate offices. Meanwhile, John Key says he's happy to go back to Waitangi next year, election year.
Well, I would have thought, providing I'm allowed to go back to TT Marae on the basis that I have every other year.
Or might it be back to the Nines for some selfie action in the stands? Corin Dan, One News.
The woman who made headlines here and overseas after throwing a sex toy at Economic Development Minister Stephen Joyce has narrowly escaped charges. The attack happened during a TV interview, and the footage has since made its way around the world. Helen Castles reports.
We were asking the Minister about his talks with iwi when this happened.
It's for raping our sovereignty.
The fake penis thrown by Christchurch nurse Josie Butler. She was protesting against the TPPA. We tracked her down this afternoon at Waitangi's Lower Marae.
You went shy yesterday.
The statement's been made and we'll leave it at that.
Not so keen to be on camera this time.
Can I ask why you chose a sex toy?
An unharmed Stephen Joyce is laughing it off.
Feeling pretty good at the moment, but stand beside me.
Footage he knows isn't going away, admitting so in this tweet. His boss definitely not amused.
I reckon it's appalling. It's appalling because that image has gone around the world. And now there's people in countries all over the world who are saying the way New Zealanders theoretically commemorate or celebrate their National Day is with a senior politician having a sex toy thrown at them.
Josie Butler could have been charged with disturbing the peace. This bridge is as far as Josie Butler's allowed to go. She's been trespassed from the treaty grounds, so she now has to watch on as her fellow protesters march on to the flagpole. A few hundred of them managing to get their message across peacefully. Helen Castles, One News.
The protests and the Prime Minister's boycott have had people across the country, including at Waitangi, reflecting on whether things need to be done differently. There is especially debate about whether political visits at Waitangi's Lower Marae on the eve of national commemorations are helpful or appropriate. Political reporter Katie Bradford is in Waitangi with this report.
Political leaders praying for a change in thinking on how we celebrate our National Day.
I would be a better nation by the time we come back here to Waitangi next year.
February 6th, in the very place the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, is usually a more peaceful event than traditional protests aimed at politicians the day before. Māori tradition mixes with Pākehā ritual. But the Prime Minister's absence from this year's commemorations have some saying, let's talk about how we celebrate this day in the future. One Ngāpuhi leader says what happened this week was embarrassing.
I think Ngāpuhi needs to get together and discuss how Waitangi Day 2017 and beyond will look.
Politicians who were at Waitangi agree on the need for a rethink.
We're going to have to work out a way that for our National Day, the head of government, whoever it is able to be part of the observances of it. It's too important not to be.
Although some say that can't mean silencing protests.
Protest is a part of Waitangi, and actually we should embrace it. We should say, that's cool. It's actually part of our National Day.
There's general agreement. We don't want to mimic Australia Day.
What does it stand for in New Zealand? How do we want to celebrate this? Is it about kind of barbecues and beers only? Is it about, communities coming together?
Certainly we need an atmosphere and an environment where we can have some informed debate and discussion.
The Prime Minister agrees about the right to debate at Waitangi.
I'm not boycotting the place. I just simply said, look, I need clarity about what I'm doing.
Hopefully that clarity comes before there's a new dawn over our National Day of celebration. Kate.
Well, Katie is with me now. So, Katie, why is it that February the 5th, the day before Waitangi Day, has become so prominent?
Well, politicians started that tradition by paying their respects to local iwi. Down at the lower marae, that's Te Tii Marae, which is the entrance to Waitangi. Essentially, they saw that as the place to pay their respects. Now, that place is also traditionally a place of protest since the 1800s. Therefore, that mix of protest and politicians have merged over the years. And what we're talking about today, what we've seen today is people talking about how we move away from that. How do we say February the 6th, a day like we've seen today where thousands of people are here enjoying stalls, enjoying food, enjoying music. There's cultural performances, there's performances from the Navy. It's a beautiful day up here on the 6th. How do we make it more about that and away from that protest? And I think it's very interesting what we've seen from Ngāpuhi saying, yes, let's talk about that. Let's work on that and work on our relationship.
Katie Bradford at Waitangi, thank you.